Welcome back to another episode of Credentialed. I'm Jillian Mealy, and you are in for a treat today. I am so excited to have my friend Kristin Harrison join me today. She is the founder and principal designer of Bungalow 10 Interiors and very recently named one of DC's magazine's Power Players of 2024. Had to throw that in your title. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited to talk to you. So, I want to start for people just to kind of give them a sense of what we're going to talk about. You have built a very successful interior design business. You didn't intend on building this. You
No.
had some help from a friend, right? Some encouragement
Yes.
and maybe some push from friends.
Yeah, I did. I had a ton of push from friends, which I feel like it's a pretty interesting start. I always had this thing, which I feel like you hear interviews with other designers and they're like, oh, I was always rearranging my room, or I always had this thing where I wanted to design, but I never knew how. And I had a few friends, one in particular that was like, you know what? I'm just going to push you into doing this. You're going to do my house. You're going to do my house. I want you to just design my house. And I was it's like, I can't do that. I can't. You're my friend. What if something goes wrong? I can't. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do that. And she basically would not take no for an answer. And somehow, we were going through the process of doing her house, and one of the magazines, Bethesda magazine, which is one of the local DC magazines, came to her. They bought the house during COVID, so they ended up wanting to do a story on the house, which ended up, then they saw the house and they were like, can we photograph the house, because they loved the way it looked. So then they included me in the story, and somehow ever since then everything kind of jumped off, and that was really 2 years ago, and now everything has completely changed. My life is completely different than it was. So I had someone who really just believed in me and would not take no for an answer. And that's a very good kind of friend to have, probably. So
Isn't it amazing where I think that most people have had that point in life? I know I did when I've gotten previous jobs in broadcasting where you have that one person who believes in you.
yeah,
Young in my career, you'd get rejected. I'd get rejected. People in general who were applying for broadcasting jobs would get rejected left and right.
yeah.
And everyone always said it just takes that one person to believe in you, because sometimes you need someone to believe in you before you believe in yourself.
Most times. I think if you're a normal, I think most normal human beings, I say normal loosely. I think we're all a little crazy, but I think sometimes, imposter syndrome is a very real thing. I still struggle with that, but I think the most important thing for me was that I had a really good core group of people saying, you can't not do this. You can't not do it. You have to do it. And to your point, I mean, they believed in me way more than I believe in myself. I mean, my friend who basically gave me my start, I say, she laughs at me, but it's true. She's still to this day, like, she thinks it's hilarious when I text her like an article that came out. She said, I told you, I told you, I told you. I mean, it's like her response to everything, but she knew it years ago, and just kind of already in her brain had said like, oh, this is going to be your trajectory. This is what you're going to do. And it really did take, and to be honest with you, it was her, and it was one of my old bosses. So
Mm.
he said to me all the time, you're crazy. Why are you still doing this? Why are you still selling medical devices? Why are you still in a hospital every day? Like, you should be doing this. So to have someone who was two people that were that close to me, one who I was actually working with, saying, you're crazy if you don't do this. I mean, that was kind of, those were two very large pushes that I couldn't ignore, but I feel lucky because some people don't have that. I would
Hmm.
have, I hate to say this, but I don't think I would have done it if I didn't have such a hard push from a couple people close to me.
That's
So,
incredible. And you've
yeah.
had a lot of success and you've learned a lot along the way. And I want to touch on all of that. But let's pause here and rewind for a second, because now that people sort of understand what you do and how you got that start, tell us what your life looked like before that. Because you just
Uh,
talked about being in hospitals and medical devices and things like that. But what
yeah.
was your life like, really, like the day in and the day out of how you were feeling, and sort of that transition and that decision and acknowledgement that, oh gosh, I'm about to make a huge change and pivot my life?
Yeah, I mean, for a very long time, I had the same kind of monotony that most people feel, where they're up every morning. I had a pit, I felt a pit in my stomach every morning. Like, I'm responsible for X, Y, and Z. I have to hit this quota and this number. And, not for nothing, sales is sales, but when you're in an operating room every day, you do have an added amount of pressure, because if you don't know the answer to something, there's someone lying on an operating room table, and you feel very responsible for yourself, your company, someone else's life. There's a doc,
Yeah.
there is a surgeon there, but you still have to know what you're talking about. So I really did feel a lot of pressure um, throughout the years in my regular job. And to be honest, I got burned out. I think most people do get burned out. Um,
Oh,
but
yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing you've been hearing. But when COVID happened and everyone was locked down at home, um, I just said to myself, I don't want to feel this way anymore when I wake up in the morning. I don't want to feel like I have to report to somebody, or I'm responsible for things that I don't want to be responsible for. It got to the point where I didn't even want to really look at the work I was doing, or you know study or do any of those things. I just felt done. And then once COVID kind of got tucked back in and people started going out into the world again, we started being able to work again and go to the hospitals and do things. I never got back to a point where I felt excited about work. And that was kind of it. Like that was between that and then having my friend push me so hard, because at that time during COVID, everyone was remodeling their houses because they were stuck inside
Yeah.
essentially for however many months when no one knew what was going on.
You look at
Um,
the same walls, the same
yeah,
colors, and you're like, oh gosh, this has
yeah.
got to go.
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of like a weird, I mean, divine intervention, I guess. But it got to that point where I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to start doing it. And I have to stop feeling this feeling every morning of I don't want to do the regular job that I'm supposed to be doing. So I literally worked. I mean, I have 3 kids, right? My kids now are 4, 3, and 1. And I was working all day and then working all night after I played with my kids, put them down to sleep, do all the stuff I have to do at home with my husband. And then I'm working all night until I go to sleep. I'm working on the weekends. That's when I was seeing clients, was during, nighttime hours, weekend hours.
Mhm.
I I say I was all in, but I essentially, not essentially, I mean, I was working all day, every weekend. I had no break. And I did that for years, and longer than most people think that I did, because I was scared to jump out of what I've been conditioned to think is like the normal way to earn a living. So
Yeah.
I think, and that's relatable, I think, to a lot of people, because, when you're used to doing something your whole life and you're almost conditioned to feel that pressure from an employer, you feel like I can't get out of that. Like, what if this doesn't work out? So that's kind of how things started from the beginning until I quit.
How hard was it to not necessarily to even make the leap, right? Because
Yeah.
I've made the leap. I know once you get there mentally, it's like the easiest thing you'll ever do. But for me,
Yeah.
anyway, it was the buildup, it was the acceptance
Yeah.
of, oh gosh, I am about to do something probably insane. I have no idea if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to be broke in a year, if I'm going to have to sell my house. Like, it's that acceptance of the thought in itself that I think I had the hardest time with.
I agree. And my husband is successful in his own right, but it's still, we live in a very expensive area, and I kept feeling selfish, like, this is what I want to do, but then I'm going to end up putting all this pressure on him to be the person who's kind of holding it together. So it was twofold, in the sense that I had the same thoughts as you, but I also had this feeling of, wow, I'm being really selfish, because now someone else is going to be super stressed out about, you know, what if this doesn't work? And the other thing, that a lot of people don't think about is, I did work for a very large healthcare company, and I carried all our benefits for all 3 of our kids. So it wasn't just going through and feeling like I was ready to leave. It was not only that, but it was, okay, I'm ready to leave. But then you have the added pressure of not only am I leaving, you know, solid, making a solid living and leaving that, but hey, guess what? Now we got to figure out all the healthcare benefits for all of our kids and everything else that we were doing. So it was a lot of, I mean, it took me a while to really feel comfortable with the fact. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that because it's not just as easy as, stopping what you're doing. I mean, it's real life, and most of the time, I think a lot of people don't make the leap because there's all these other aspects of life that just kind of, I mean, it is what it is, right? You can't, most people can't afford to not have their healthcare that they currently have. And I'm
Oh,
just
I
using
know.
that as
I'm
one
paying for
example.
healthcare, out of my it is so insanely expensive.
It is
And
insanely expensive.
and I
Yes.
know that like these things you have to think about. You have to plan your budget. You have to sit down. You have to be prepared mentally, emotionally, financially, like in every aspect of life.
Yep.
And I know that one of the things that's important to you is that message of having your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Kristen, I didn't even have ducks like in a distance. Like there was maybe one that I saw like a mile away.
Yeah, that's not the best strategy, but you made it. No, it's good. It's true. I mean, I had some very good advice. I keep saying this, but I feel incredibly lucky because I have so many wonderful people around me. And I have a friend from back home where we're both from in Philadelphia that I spoke to that was in the design world. And she said, the best advice I can give you before I even started doing anything was have everything laid out. So essentially, the groundwork of your business should be done in the sense that you are expecting to explode. You're expecting to become like $1 billion company. So you should be able to scale everything that you're doing right now before you even begin to that crazy level, which was honestly, like I said, it's the best advice I ever got because
Mm.
I had, before I even put pictures out there, let anybody know what I was doing, I had all my financial stuff done. I had all my, all the tax stuff that you needed to have done, all the resale certificates. I was signed up with all the vendors, the wholesalers. I mean, I did 7, 8 months of work before I even told anyone what I
Wow.
was doing. So
Huh.
yeah, it was a lot of back work. It was a lot of research, right? Because I didn't want to get to the point, I didn't want to start doing anything with my business and taking on a client until I knew that I was well versed in everything that needed to happen on
Mhm.
the back end. And I think that's a mistake that people make is they think like I'm just gonna start doing it. But then you kind of get into a situation where you screw yourself a little bit because you got to go backwards and fix a bunch. So if you just take the time
Yeah.
up front to get everything squared away, it saves so many headaches. And I've been able to scale so much more quickly and so much easier because of that. So that is like the best advice I could give. Plan as if you're going to explode.
Yeah, it's probably the very smart approach, but there are two sides to this coin, two parts to this conversation, which the one is, like I said, you probably did it the smart way, spending that 7, 8 months or whatever it takes you, if someone's listening, whatever that might take you for the business that you want to start.
Right.
Um, yes, getting your ducks in a row, planning everything out, getting everything set up with taxes and your financials and your invoicing system and your emails and things like that.
Yeah.
Sure. But there are people who will get lost in that process and they get discouraged. So
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said too for also just starting. And I don't mean just, okay, quit your job today and then
Yeah.
just start a business and figure it out. I mean, I joke when I say I didn't have ducks like even in the distance. I had thought this through. I had sat down, I did my budget.
Yeah.
There were so many things I was learning on the fly that had I
Yeah.
spent that time beforehand, even a month or 2 months, that would
Yeah.
have been sufficient enough for me. I
Yeah.
think it would have helped me a lot, but I think a lot
It's
of
do the
people
best you
do.
can.
What's that?
Oh, sorry, you cut it. I was gonna say it's just do the best you can, right?
Yes. I just think people get discouraged because it's like, it's such a big change and there's so much anticipation building when you're about to make that change that I think people can almost talk themselves out of it then. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm neurotic in the sense that I think things over and over again. So I'm probably I'm over on this side of the spectrum. And I think if as long as you just do your due diligence, even if it's for a week, okay? You take a week and you just
Hmm.
figure out where it might go. I think that's totally fine too. I think I'm just on the other end of things where I had so much at stake that I wanted to make sure that I put so much time behind it. But I think if
Yep.
you can do just even the basic building blocks, if you can go through that for a week or two and to not, because sometimes the more you know, the more discouraged you get. To your point, you think I have another friend who's a designer, and we joke all the time. Ignorance is bliss is a real thing because the more you know, sometimes the more you do get discouraged. So I kind of focused on when I was kind of building up throughout the first 6, 7, 8 months, my focus was more on the day-to-day stuff, like how to actually run a business, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't, faulting anyone that was my client. But I think to your
Yep.
point, don't it's almost like almost don't learn too much because you want to have that like blind faith in yourself. And I think there is a very easy way to balance and not go too far to one
Yep.
side. So if that makes sense. So I do understand. And I think it kind of helps as well. And going back to what we were saying before about imposter syndrome, you almost don't want to know too much.
Would
So
you
I agree.
One of the things that I talked about on a podcast recently is that when you're building something, there's this loneliness that can be attached to it. And I don't even say that in a negative way, because I think when we say, oh, there's loneliness, it's like, oh my gosh, and it has this like negative connotation. But I mean, I tell people, I'm like, learn to live in that quiet time, in that lonely time that you get for yourself. Because for me anyway, and I'm curious your opinion, that's when I think. Like I wake up early in the morning just to have an hour or two on my computer to write out my thoughts,
Yeah.
to write out ideas, to write out strategies, to like I just need that lonely time. And I also think there's that loneliness when you're building because you are so focused, as you just talked about. I mean, you would spend 24/7 pretty much for years
Yeah.
trying to work and trying to build up your business. What was that like for you?
It is lonely. It's lonely because, you really feel like no one else could understand. You have this drive behind you to do something. And it's kind of like you have blinders on and you have this goal in mind. And yeah, it's hard to explain. Lonely is probably the best way to describe it because and it's not like a sad kind of lonely, but it is
Yeah.
I am focused and I feel like I have this goal in my mind and I have to be doing this 24/7 or I'm not going to get to this goal. So I do feel like that. And it was, my husband's super supportive, my friends were super supportive. I certainly had people to talk to about it, but it was almost like I don't really have anything to talk about yet. I'm just doing this in my head. So it's like you have a support system. The support system is there, but you're not actually sharing anything with them because nothing's actually happening yet. You're just planning it out in your own head. And this probably sounds crazy to people, but I think that's the best way to explain it is like you have the support is there. I mean, hopefully you have the support and the support is there, but you are so focused, you have blinders on to the point that nothing else is coming into that bubble. So I do agree 100%. And I think if you haven't gone through it, you wouldn't quite understand it. But if you're going through it, you know exactly what we're talking about.
And if you're thinking about going through it, know
Yeah.
that if and when that happens, that it's normal, that it's
Very
part of the
normal. Yes.
process. That's why I think it's important to talk about because no one really told me that. I didn't
Yeah.
expect it. And so all of a sudden I wake up one day like a year in and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I feel exactly what you just said. I feel like I've had blinders up for my
Yeah.
life for this last year and I'm like, when is this going to go away?" But at the same time, I'm like, everything rides on me. This
Yeah.
is my business. This is my brand. Like, I believe in what I'm doing. And so, if I don't have these blinders up and if I don't sit and focus, the job's not going to get done.
Yeah. That is correct. Not only is the job not going to get done, but you have to remember too, people always love commenting on things, I feel like, and they always love, like, you have so many opinions of so many different people. And and I don't know about you, but I just had to block everything out. Even the good stuff I would block out because I'm like, yeah, that's great. I'm like past that. Thank you for the compliment. But like, this isn't even close to where I need to be right now. And it's great. So and that probably sounds terrible. I don't mean it like that. Of course, I appreciate the support and the compliments, but I think you have in your mind where you want to go and like what you need to do to get there. So it's just a whole different thing. It's a whole different aspect of starting your own brand, your own
Mm-hmm.
business, whatever you're doing that most people, like you said, don't talk about. And it feels, you're kind of isolated a little bit, but not because anyone did it to you. You're doing it to yourself because you have such a hefty goal in mind.
Yep. And you're
Yeah.
focused. Okay. So you, in a few years, have built out a very successful business where you're getting recognized in publications.
Yeah.
And congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
As someone who is in media, I know what it takes to be able to have recognition from magazines and
Yeah.
other different outlets. And so that is incredible. Talk
Thank
to
you.
me about your maybe some tips you can give people for marketing strategy, business strategy, for how you might utilize messaging and storytelling and things like that. I know for you in your business, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it probably is word of mouth, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the back end.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the back end. And I will tell you, the best investment I ever made was in a PR person, right? So it's all it's a game, it's business, it's a strategy, right? And I came into it because I had a business background, thinking very much like a business person, which is, okay, I have this product. My product is the design and the photographs that I'm getting of these beautiful spaces that I'm able to design, right? But those photographs mean nothing if they can't get out there. So you I everything I was making, I was investing back into my business. So I was, people don't realize photo shoots are expensive. Photo
Mm-hmm.
shoots are really like, you're paying for a photographer, you're paying for a stylist, then you're paying to edit the photos. Like it's expensive. And I don't think people even realize how expensive it is, but that's one thing, right? So you have people capturing art. Essentially it's art, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody lives like they do in these photographs, but you're portraying this life of like perfection, which is another topic that we don't need to get into. But
Oh,
the
what? Portraying perfection
yeah,
online on social media? What are you talking
that's crazy. People always ask me, they see my pantry, the pictures of my pantry, and I'm like, yeah, let me show you a picture now because it's covered with kid food and whatever else is everywhere. But
about?
yeah, I mean, you have these pictures, right? And for me, that's like your whole business. But what I did
Mhm.
was I took every dime that I made and I put it back into the business. So I hired a
Smart.
PR person, and PR is great, right? But you kind of get what you put into it. So, she's sending me all of these things. Hey, like I have this opportunity for you to comment on this or comment on this and, be put online in this publication, or what do you think about commenting for this story? And most of the time, a lot of designers would say, I don't have time, I'm too busy, or I don't want to comment for this, this is kind of silly. I would say yes to everything,
Good
every
for
single
you,
thing
because
you
people
sent me.
don't.
Yeah, because people don't, and people also don't realize, right? When you're commenting and you're responding to these wonderful writers who are doing the actual articles. Not only is it helping put your name out there, but you're also starting to improve your SEO online. So, and your search engine optimization online.
Yep.
So it's twofold in that regard. So I was responding to everything, and all of those pictures, I kept asking my PR person, I said, I want these, like, I want this to be in a national magazine, I want this to be in a local magazine, like, let's just keep pushing, keep pushing. And the funny thing was, there were actually pictures of my house that a very local magazine was like, oh, I don't want to publish this, like no one would want to live there or something. Like it was just,
What?
yeah, it was, I was like, oh, okay, like that's so nice.
That's really
um
nice of you. Thanks.
yeah, but then it got picked up by a national publication, number one, and then it
Mm,
also got picked up by another local publication here, like an
love that.
elite one, which I thought, it just goes to show you, it's just consistency and like
Mm-hmm.
not giving up. I am so stubborn. I'm like, no, you know what? Now I have this fire in me. I'm going to get this published. Like I will pay my PR person to literally write an email to everyone that they can to get it published. So there's a whole other side. Like people see these pictures online and they think, oh, this is so easy. They post a picture and then it goes everywhere. It goes viral. And then you get all these followers. Like it's not the case. Behind the scenes, it is, I am paying people. It is a business. I am paying people to promote essentially art,
Yep.
right? This stuff is art. It is,
Yep.
nobody lives this way,
It's
right?
gorgeous.
It's, well, thank you. Apparently, thank you for
It
someone
is.
who thinks that it's pretty.
It's gorgeous.
Um, but it's true. So you have to invest back in your business. So
Mm-hmm.
my best advice is to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing.
I
Okay?
love that
Because
advice.
it's very true. You have to surround yourself with people who have been through, they've gotten to the point where you want to get to, but they also are honest. They tell you what's going to work, what's not going to work. And don't wait to do that, right? People thought I was crazy for hiring a PR person before I even had anything published. I had like one set of
Wow.
photos and I said, I'm doing it because I don't want to wait 5 years and then do it. Like, I want to start with the best people that I possibly can. And yes, it's an investment. And yes, it sucks to hand all your money over, but it, if you do it right in the beginning, it will pay off. I can't even express to you how beneficial that it was. And you can kind of see it right in the trajectory of my business, but invest in the people that can help you.
How much would you say you've scaled and that you've grown in the last few years since you've started
Oh
this?
my God. I don't even think I could put a number on it. Like the percentage has gone, like
It's like 7,000% probably or something crazy.
yeah, it's insane. I mean, and the other thing people don't talk about is like, I did a lot of stuff for free. I wouldn't charge people. If I really wanted a project, I'd be like, I'm not charging you. I'll do it. Just let me do it. Let me do it. And I worked for free, like for a while. And, I think it was Ryan Serhan who said this from Million Dollar Listing on Bravo, which whatever. I'm a Bravo fan. Okay, guys. Um,
Oh, you
I,
have time to watch TV? That sounds nice.
yeah, that was like years ago. No, but he said something like, do things for free until people are scared to not pay you. And I I always listened to that and I was like, you know what? I can't go out there right now with no experience and compete with these people who have been around for 20 years and are charging $500,000 just for their fee to do a house. Like I can't, what am I bringing? And I'm not putting myself down. I'm just being realistic, right? Like what
Yeah.
am I bringing to the table if I'm compared to these people? And if I really wanted a job and I was lucky enough that they reached out to me, I was like, like I said, I'll do it for free. So
It's even worth like the reference at that point,
yes,
the
it's the
testimonial.
pictures. Yes, it's the pictures. It's the
Mm-hmm.
reference. You have to think,
Mm-hmm.
at a higher level. It's not just about what you're making right now. Like I sacrificed a lot of my time and a lot of headache to get some of these shoots that I've gotten and get some of these clients that I've gotten. And I don't do that anymore, guys. Okay. So don't email me about that. But I
I
don't
heard
have
that you said you'll do these jobs for
yeah,
free.
I don't have enough time. I would do it if I could, but I really did. I mean, I sacrificed a lot
Yeah.
for a few years, and that's something that people don't talk about either. And it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're, going backwards if you're doing something for free.
Okay, so I have pulled up on my phone a post from your company's Instagram account,
Okay.
at Bungalow 10.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm gonna read it, okay?
Okay.
And it says, "Hi guys, lots of new followers here. I'm Kristin, and so far I've been like Sia on this app. Love her dedication. I've been very hesitant to show my face due to how cruel the internet can be, but with the support of a great community and a great photographer, and you name the photographer,
Yes.
I have decided to come out of hiding, I suppose. I'll try to show more behind the scenes and how the process works. I know I've gotten a lot of requests for that." And it continues on. Talk to me about the emotion behind that post, because I read it and I was like, wow, the internet can be cruel. Everyone has opinions, and
Yeah.
a lot of people feel the need to share them, good or bad. And you talked earlier about blocking out that noise, but I, for one, coming from a background of storytelling and knowing how important it is, I know how important it is for potential clients to know the story of the business, how it got started, who started it, because when you know that person and the face behind it
Yeah.
and the human behind it, then when you have that emotional connection, like that connection is worth its weight in gold.
Oh yeah. And it's all about, I mean, you're vested, right? Like if you for a long time, and you know me on a personal level, but for a long time I said, I don't want to show my face on here. Like the internet is so mean. And it wasn't about people. I don't care. People call me ugly. I don't care
You're
about that stuff.
beautiful,
Well, thank you.
by
But
the way.
it wasn't about that. It was more just like, you know, I guess it, if I'm not showing my face, I'm not showing all these personal aspects and it's just my work, it's just a lot easier for someone like me to just be like, oh, okay, they didn't like it. Who cares? They don't even know who I am, Like, it's fine. You can kind of hide behind that a little bit. Um, and then obviously my PR person, my photographer, everybody's like, oh, you better show your face. You need to get out there. You need to do this. We're expected to make like 8,000 reels a week and put our face
I
out
know,
there.
so it's
Do
so
whatever
time
else you're
consuming.
supposed to do, whatever else you're supposed to do, which is insane. But I got to the point where I said, you know what? I, good or bad, like 90% of my followers are women anyway. And everyone had been so kind about all of the work that I was posting and all the things that I had done. And people DM me, and just like I started noticing that the community that I had attracted some way or another was really just nice people like me who wanted advice or wanted to do, just wanted to chat or make a joke. And I was like, okay, I can do it. Right. And that, me putting myself out there, just even for that one post, like showing my face, that, like, I had anxiety about that for weeks. I thought about doing it because I really just didn't know if it was a good idea. And now it is kind of, it's been a relief, right? Because now I can go on, I can talk on my stories, I can talk to people. I don't feel the need to like hide behind the
Mhm.
camera anymore. But I also think it kind of makes it more relatable. Like, and doing things like this, you're able to help people. I get interior designers or college students that are graduating that reach out to me all the time, like, hey, do you have any advice? Or, hey, are you looking for an intern? Or, what would you do in this situation? And I think that's all. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I respond to every single DM, and don't start DMing me all the time now. But I try,
Do you
I
get
keep
do
saying
you get
this,
the
but
like show me your feet,
yeah,
DMs and
yeah,
comments? Because I
yeah.
do.
I'm not on OnlyFans. I am strictly responding about design questions, but it changed everything for me a little bit. It made me feel like it's a legitimate thing now. It's not just me. I think for a while too, I was scared to fail. So I thought, I don't want to put my face out there. That would be so embarrassing if I fell on my face and none of this stuff took off. But
Mm,
it's not that easy for some people.
it's not. And
And
that
it's,
was back in March that you posted that and that you
yeah.
posted the picture of you. So you said you feel a little better now, but you talked about a lot of the anxiety that you had for weeks even leading up to that. What would you tell business owners as your piece of advice, having gone through that anxiety, those thoughts, and sort of dreading the, oh my gosh, are people going to have bad things to say? What if I fail and my face is attached? What would you tell people to do about that? Because a lot of people are very anxious and nervous about that.
Yeah, and with good reason. And I would say you have to do what's comfortable. Like, you have to do what's comfortable for yourself. I talked myself through it. I talked to my husband, I talked to my friends. They're all like, "Oh, you're crazy. Just do it." Of course, it's much easier from the outside to say that, but I think, like, you really have to think about it. And I will say that if you decide that you don't want to put your face out there, I would either hire someone or find someone to be your face, because I
Good
do
idea.
think that it helps people kind of, they put a face with the name of your business. They put a face with like something being, friendly, or someplace they want
It's
to
personal
go, or
then.
something they want to do. Right. So if you're not comfortable, I would say find someone who is comfortable to be kind of the face of your business, because whether we like it or not, that's the way the world is now. I'm kind of hoping we get away from that a little bit and we go back to the way things were before. But It's the way the world is. So that is my advice. Either be the face, get comfortable with that. But if you can't get comfortable, that's okay too. But find someone who is. And there's plenty of kids graduating college that want to be internet superstars. So you can find a lot of people that want to be a face for something.
That's hilarious. I love
Yeah.
it. Okay, so what would you tell people then? Because I myself, even in this first almost year and a half of being an entrepreneur and a business owner, I've had to pivot along the way. You know, sometimes you have ideas and they turn out better than you expected. Sometimes you have ideas and they don't turn out as great as you expected.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to evolve.
Mhm.
What would you say your experience has been like with that and your guidance to others?
I would say for a very long time, I was scared of getting any sort of like negative feedback. And I would kind of hide a little bit from it. And I think the best thing you can do is continuously check in with clients or however your business is structured to get feedback. And don't shy away from the bad feedback. The bad feedback helps you way more than the good feedback, to be honest. And I had sat down with a client a couple months ago that I had taken on in the very beginning that I probably should not have taken on. I just was so excited about it, and I charged him like a real client. It was in the very beginning, and I just always felt like I didn't do as good of a job as I should have or I
Mm.
could have, and I was always scared to like hear back from them. And I sat down with one of the homeowners, and I just said, like, give it to me, give me all of it, take me through exactly what was great, what wasn't great. And we I for so long I had been scared to hear anything like that, but it was so helpful to
And
say
it probably wasn't as bad as you thought.
it wasn't as bad as I thought. And so many things had changed from then until now. The things that I do, like some of the things she was asking for, I do now, like on steroids, right? But um, it was, I, it was so, it made me think to myself, why am I not checking in with these people during the process? Like every couple of months saying, hey, let's like sit down, have a meeting. Let's talk about what's going really well and what you need from me in other areas or what we can do better. Um, and that's my best advice to people is don't be scared, because in the beginning you think, especially if you're struggling with imposter syndrome or you're starting a new business that you see other people doing so well, don't be scared to sit down and say, hey, like what can I be doing better? And by the way, I gave that client their money back
All
from
of it? Oh my
years later.
gosh.
Yes, I did.
Wow.
And don't be DMing me about that either. I'm not giving you your money back. But I did, because I said, and I think it's all about, I always tell people before I start every project, like something's going to go wrong, right? We're all human. Either a nail's going to fall out of the wall or something's going to fall from the ceiling, whatever it is. But just know whatever the issue is, I'm going to take care of it. That's how I operate things. Like you can have trust in me. And I think
Mm.
um, feedback from clients super important, but also just having them know that like you're a good person and you're going to take care of and you'll always do the right thing.
Yep.
That is my best advice, and I try and live by that, and that's the way I try to operate my business. And I think most people, if you can do that, if you can just be you know the person that everyone wishes they could do business with, then you will be fine.
Is there any other advice or anything that you think we missed that you want to get out? Because I want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more just about what you're doing and like home trends and sort of the passion behind it. But before that, any other tips or pieces of advice?
I think the best piece of advice, we kind of talked about it, but just if you want to do something, just start doing it. Like, just start, even in the smallest scale. If you want to be a designer, start making little vignettes in your house and taking pictures of it and post them on the internet. Like, don't wait, and don't think that you can't start because you don't have some like massive project, right? Like, create your own luck, essentially. And I think that a lot of people, they just think like, oh, it's too much work, like I can't do it, or I can't change jobs, or I can't do this. Just start. Do it on the weekends, do it at night. If you really like something, just start doing it. You can't succeed if you don't start, right? And you don't want to look back in 10 years or the end of your life and be like, why didn't I just try? Like
Yep.
that is the best advice I can give to people is just start with something. It
I
can
love
be
that.
one picture.
I always say, I'm like, I want to look back at my life and say I did that or I tried that.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I'm like, I don't want to be this person who's always just in this job that I love and that's great and that's comfortable because I have a contract. I know how many years I'll be here. I know what my salary is and that's great. But it was never like risk taking, you
Yeah.
know? And I wanted to be one of those people. So I think that that's
Yeah.
great advice. Um, the home trends, I feel like just give us a little, quick. Black and white has been in for so long now. Like,
Yeah.
is that still a thing? Like,
I
what's
mean,
happening here?
like black and white floors, like checker floors, that's classic. You know what? I This is such a cop out answer. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna like probably lecture me about this answer, but I will tell you that if you really like something, it's not gonna go out of style. Okay.
True.
Like people always try and look at stuff they see in the magazines, which by the way is not real. Like these stylists are so unbelievably talented that they'll have you thinking like you're in like the Swiss Alps when they're really in a house in Malibu. So like don't, like do what you want to do in your house. If you feel like you really have this, you really like something, like buy it. But what I always tell people is like if you focus on having more neutral bones in your house, like you
Mhm.
have, nice lighter colors or whatever your neutrals are, do that. And then if you want to experiment on trends, get smaller stuff, get
Yep.
pillows and lamps and things that you can replace easier. But well, Jillian, great job. I hate this question that you asked me because it changes. No, it's like
This is
it changed. Everybody's taste is so different.
it is.
It's hard to
Okay,
say.
but
Okay.
like for instance, the light gray,
Are we talking
like
about your house right now?
no, we're
Okay.
not. The
Okay.
okay, but I will, but we're not. But the light gray interior
Gray is
was
done.
the thing for so long.
Gray is done.
And I'm over it. Like I'm
Yeah.
done. I don't have a bit of light gray in here. I've
Yeah.
got a black dining room. I've got a navy blue office, and
Yep.
I've got like what's the color? I'm totally drawing up like a tan, but like a deeper tan, like
Oh,
on
like
my
a
walls.
taupey.
Yes, like a
Yeah.
taupe. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
like, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm over the grays, right? And
Okay.
for houses exteriorly, I feel like use exteriorly, is that a word?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a lot of like the white with the black panes
Yeah.
and the windows, and so I feel like there are trends.
That is true.
Um,
I'll give it to you. It's true. Gray is done. Like I will tell you that if we send magazine editors any house pictures that have a lot of gray in them, they won't even look at them. So
wow.
gray is very much, if you want to date your house, pick gray. So I would say get away. I also think definitely more saturated tones for walls and furniture. Like people are much more into experimenting with, different colors of their couches, super
Yeah, I
like
love
dark
that.
walls. Yeah. And also, I would say, you know, in terms of like wood tones, we obviously see like a lot of white oak and wood tones always change throughout the years. Like remember when everyone wanted black wood floors or super
Yes.
dark floors? I always tell people to stick kind of more in like the classic brown tones, but I would say you're going to start seeing a lot more walnuts for kitchen cabinets and darker tones, espresso tones,
Hmm.
instead of just like super light. I mean, you'll all of woods are classic, right? You can really mix woods, but I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that. And obviously wallpaper is like a big thing.
Yes.
We're back in full force. And people are going to hate this, but wallpaper borders are also back.
Wallpaper
So
borders? I don't even.
wallpaper borders are also back.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. You'll see. You're going to see a lot of that.
Oh my. Okay,
It's
here's a now
fascinating.
to my house. So my house was built in like 1948 or
You're
something.
on the clock.
It's still, I know. We're gonna go after this. It still has like original, like the light blonde wood, like floors. Some of them are
Yeah.
mess, some of them are
Yeah.
really good. But I still have chair rails on my walls, and my father keeps
Yeah.
being like, "You need to get rid of these. Are they
Yeah.
gonna come back? Should I leave them?
Okay, so
Because they're like retro."
here's a cool, I mean, wallpaper above the chair rail. Paint the chair rail down, paint it all really dark. Like there's ways to get around it, right? But like to your dad's point, I mean, listen, some people love molding. I could talk about this all day. Some people love molding and they love that look. It just depends on the vibe of your house, right? Like
It's
I know
true.
what your house kind of looks like now.
Yeah.
I would take it off. I'm team dad. But
Okay. Okay.
even if it
Tom
comes
wins.
back, it's like a strip of wood, Jillian. You can nail
I
it. It'll
know.
be fine. Yeah. It's not
Well,
that.
if you guys have any questions, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening, and you're possibly in the market for interior design,
Yeah.
reach out to Kristin, DM her. No, she's not going to do it for free. But those days are over. How
Yeah.
can people reach you? How can they find you?
So bungalow10.com, bungalow 10, not spelled out 10. I always have to tell people that. At bungalow 10 on Instagram. And I do have a profile on Architectural Digest Pro, so you can go on there as well and see some of my work. But just stick to those. Don't get crazy. Don't call me. You know, just email me or no, just kidding. Hello at Bungalow 10 if you want to reach out to us, but
And
very
real
easy.
quick,
Yeah.
the story behind the name Bungalow 10.
I knew you were going to ask this question. And the answer is actually, this is good business advice. Okay. I was going to name it after myself, but if you ever want to scale your company and sell it, it's not the smartest thing to name it after yourself because then if you're gone, then the brand is kind of,
Yep.
gone. So, this house that I built with my husband is the 10th place that I've lived since, I left home, meaning, all other apartments that I've lived, all places that I've
Yep.
lived. And I always love the name bungalow for a house, like a little beach bungalow. So
I
that's where it
love
came from, which
that.
is probably a terrible answer, but that's the
No,
truth. So
I love it.
yeah,
Oh, well,
here
this
we
is
are.
so fun. Thank you for your time and for your tips. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that they're going to help a lot of people.
I
And
hope
we'll
so.
do another one of these. We'll keep
Yeah.
keep in touch.
Yes. Thank you for having me. And don't follow your dreams, guys. That is so corny. But just please do. People, the world needs more of that.
Yes, Kristin Harrison, principal designer and founder of Bungalow 10. Thank you, and thank you for being here for another episode of Credentialed. See you
Yeah.
next time.
Thank you. Bye, guys.